Listing beneficiaries on your accounts is great for a couple reasons. One, it's going to avoid probate, because if you list, your daughter as the sole beneficiary on your bank account, when you pass away, she'll be able to go into the bank and they'll release the money outright to her. Same on a life insurance policy, in a brokerage account, or even on a piece of real estate if you've listed a person as a beneficiary. So that's really the good thing, is it's immediate. They don't have to go to court in order to get those assets. But there's probably more bad than good by doing that, because if you list them as the beneficiary, they have immediate access, which means, and that money is theirs, or that house is theirs right away, which means, first of all, if there's two kids and you only list one of them as a beneficiary, there's no, unless you really trust that person you've listed as the beneficiary, there's nothing to guarantee that they'll divide the assets between them and their siblings. So that's number one. Number two is creditors, right? So if the person that you're leaving money to has a bunch of debts, as soon as they receive that money, if there's a judgment against them, that creditor can come in and swipe up that money and take that money for them. If that person has drug, alcohol problems, again, you probably don't want to leave a large sum of money outright to them. Or, what if daughter is married and you leave, $500,000 to her, and then son-in-law decides to divorce her the next day? Well, now that $500,000 is a part of their marital assets, and he's probably walking away with half of that. So you don't have a whole lot of options of things that you can plan for and avoid all of those, the creditors, the spouse getting divorced, drug, alcohol addictions. You really can't do anything if you just list the person as a beneficiary. What we generally recommend is listing a trust as a beneficiary, right? So what we do, a family wealth trust. And in that family wealth trust, that's going to allow us to set aside the money for the individual. So that, let's say that we know son has a drug addiction, right? Well, we don't want to give him $500,000 outright. So we're going to list the trust as a beneficiary. And when you pass away, we're going to set aside that $500,000 in a separate sub trust for him. He can't touch it. Somebody else is going to be in charge of that. And so we'll be able to control how much money, if any, he gets, right? And or for the daughter, we might set a sub trust for her so that all that money, if she gets divorced, doesn't go into the marriage, and the son-in-law doesn't take half of it, right? We can set up a sub trust for her. So there's a lot of things that we can do to make sure that they're protected. What if your spouse, you pass away and then your spouse remarries and then they get divorced, and now that new spouse walks away with half of the inheritance that you wanted to go to your kids? Those are all problems if we just list somebody as a beneficiary, which is why we probably are going to want to set up some sort of trust and some sub-trusts, so we can avoid those things and actually make sure that the money gets to the people you want it to get to without actually causing them more pain and more difficulties than you probably would have intended.